So what's new? What's new is it's, same wine, new bottles. And the ADL didn't know that. And they're supposed to be the ones who know all about anti-Semitism, right? So if you don't know that, quit. Learn to code. Do something else. Let's find somebody else who can protect us. Mm-hmm. So this is terrible. I can tell you in Boston, I'll give you 2 cases. In the city of Newton, Massachusetts is heavily Jewish, 40% of Jews in school.
It's a suburb.
It's a suburb. Leafy Jewish, you could say it's a leafy Jewish suburb, very Jewish suburb. So all of a sudden we find out that they're teaching from books in the schools, in high school, Newton high schools, north and south, from a Saudi-funded textbook called the Arab World Studies Notebook. And in it, it says, a girl comes home and she says to her dad, "Dad, is it true that Jews are killing Arab women in Israeli jails? Murdering Israeli Arab women, Palestinian Arab women in Israeli jails?" And the father says, "What? No, it's not true. Where'd you read that?" "In my school." So there it is. There it is. And
at least she asked her father.
At least she asked her father. There's a lot of people who are going, one of the biggest problems right now is that you think all of this woke stuff on college campuses and all of this critical race theory on college campuses, which is deadly to the Jews, by the way. And it's in the high schools because, left-wing and Arabist and Islamic funders fund curriculum mills, which churn out these lesson plans, which are pedagogically correct. They look like a regular lesson plan, right? Here's an introduction, here's a reading, here's questions, here's an exercise, right? It's there. And there is no Jewish organization CAMRA does some of this because they were forced to because nobody else was doing it. They did a great job. So CAMRA goes into my group, Americans for Peace and Tolerance, linked up with a parents group that tried to stop this. And we couldn't get the ADL and the Jewish Community Relations Council and the Federation and the American Jewish Committee. Those are the 4 horsemen of our disaster, right? Our establishment, Jewish leadership, which has all the money in the world to do what they're supposed to do, but they don't. They said, "No, let's not have this fight. Let's go see if we can do this without having a fight. And, it's not so bad." And they came out against us. And they said we were exaggerating. Well, so then people asked CAMRA, which is really respected in terms of its scholarship, "Could you please go and look at the curriculum in Newton North and Newton South?" Well, to get the curriculum, you had to sue the school. You had to create FOIAs, a state version of a request. Yeah, a state version of that is called something else. That's a federal. You had to do a legal application to get what they're teaching in the public, which people are paying for in their taxes. And CAMRA did a fantastic job. They got a booklet this thick, very scholarly, showing horrible things that are in there. Lies, right? Exercises. Let's debate, should there be a Jewish state, right? Should there be a German state after what the Germans did, right? Should there be a Chinese state after what China is doing? But let's see, should there be a Jewish state? And worse. And they had maps in these materials that were created by the PLO. Maps, and then they took off on the bottom of the map that it was created by the PLO. So, and worse and worse and worse. So it just got worse and worse and worse. And we had to fight against our own establishment who was telling the Jewish community, who wrote, wait till I finish this, who wrote in the Jewish newspaper here, The Advocate, we are exaggerating, there's not a big problem there. We'll talk to the school board for you, don't worry. This was a lie. So I had the head of the JCRC, his name is Jeremy Burton, come to my house, meet with a mother of a student, senior or junior student at one of the high schools. And she brought his notebook and his curriculum. And it was supposed to be a 15-minute meeting. He stayed for an hour, Burton. At the end of which, and he looked at the stuff and he was like aghast, you know, at the end of which he said, you know, we're going to have to change our public position because this is, you know, you were right. You were right. So we said, wow, this is really important. Thank you so much, because we're not going to win. If you guys go tell the mayor of the city that we're exaggerating, how can we possibly win? He said, no, we're going to change it. So 2 weeks go by, nothing happens. And I call him up. Jeremy, what happened? My board won't let me do it. What do you mean? We can't have been so wrong. And you can't have been so right. Right? So these are the people who are defending the Jews. They're willing to do that. They're willing to write publicly in a Jewish newspaper that things aren't so bad in the school. Then when they find out that they were wrong, they can't bring themselves to say, oops, we made a mistake. We're going to go fix this now. We're going to change the curriculum so it won't defame all the Jews in the school. Because if you are sitting in a high school class and the country that you as a Jew support is shown to be, taught to be murdering people and oppressing people and stealing land from people and bombing people and oppressing them needlessly, then who are you? You're not such a good person. So that's the AD, and the ADL was in charge of this whole business.
Under Jonathan Greenblatt?
No, this was Foxman. This was Foxman. And the ADL reported that they had reviewed the materials in the Newton Public Schools and that they were not bad. Okay. And they called it the Oren Report. Well, we didn't think that they had done that. We thought that that was a lie because they couldn't have possibly done that. We did that. So, and we had the support of the publisher of the Jewish Advocate, which is Boston, New England's Jewish paper. Great paper, inspired by Theodore Herzl, one of the best Jewish papers in the country. And his name, Rebbe Korf, who owned the paper, he had the courage to come out against the big guys in town, right? The Jewish establishment, all of them, the ADL and the Federation. And he backed us because he read the materials himself. And you know what they did?
What?
They ruined his paper. They took out the advertising. They stopped advertising in his paper. And now that paper doesn't exist. And that was a big reason. I mean, it wasn't the only reason, right? All these small papers all small papers are struggling. He had that. But they stopped, they pulled their advertising budget from his paper because of that, because he had the courage to say the truth. Not many people would have the courage to say that truth.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that that Jews, as typically liberally minded people who come from their own victimhood, an empathy to recognize a victimhood in other people's, are being too kind to those who may have ill intentions, malevolent intentions?
Absolutely. I mean, they're being kind because they should be kind. They should stand for human rights, and they do stand for human rights. And anybody, there are black groups today who will, who go around and teach the black community what the Jews did for the blacks during the civil rights movement. Important black groups, and they should, and they do. But they also thought there would be some reciprocity, right? And today, the Jewish establishment still believes that there will be reciprocity, and there isn't much. I mean, if you can't get the Democratic Party to say that, we're not going to hang out with Louis Farrakhan, and if you can't get Bill Clinton not to sit next to Louis Farrakhan at Aretha Franklin's funeral, we're on the left. We've led the left with our brains. We've supported the left with our dollars, with our spirit. And now the left is spitting at us, and the Jewish establishment is trapped, cornered, doesn't know what to do, flummoxed. We need the leaders. So now we have Jonathan Goldblatt at the Greenblatt, sorry. And he he comes out, he wants to fight Islamophobia, you see, which is a fraudulent concept, right? I mean, Islamophobia, it's supposed to be like a racism, but it has nothing to do with race. It has to do with ideas, right? If Islam says kill apostates, you ought to be Islamophobic. If Islam says it's okay to beat your wife, which it does, you ought to be against that idea, not against the race. There's no race of Muslims. But they very cleverly, it's one of the most clever things ever. They made up this word so that nobody can criticize anything in Islamic culture or ideas or history. So you can't say the truth about anything. You can't say that Jews and Christians under Islamic law can never be equal because they are dhimmi, D-H-I-M-M-I, very important concept.
Yeah. And
always were dhimmi. Yeah. You can't even talk about Jewish history under Islamic law in any kind of a real way because you'll be charged with being Islamophobic. So when Greenblatt says he's against Islamophobia, well, he's against saying what the truth is about Jewish history and about Islamic ideas, about women and gays and religious minorities. So, and that's what he does. Greenblatt writes letters condemning people who care about Islamist threats to America. Greenblatt writes letters against Bridget Gabriel, against Frank Gaffney, against Mike Pompeo. We have this case of just now in Colorado, a man from Syria who came here from Syria, whose family came here from Syria as refugees, goes and shoots up, kills 10 people at a place which
a young man.
A young man. Yeah.
In his 20s.
In his 20s, on whose Facebook page is all kinds of wonderful stuff about Islam and Sharia law and the Prophet Muhammad. And from Syria,
support for ISIS, as I recall.
And support for ISIS. And the place he chooses to drive 25 miles to shoot up happens to be a place that advertises itself as one-stop shopping for kosher shoppers. So we don't know exactly yet for sure, but it wouldn't be a crazy thing to find out that he was going after those shoppers.
Because they were Jewish. Because the store could attract Jews.
Catered to Jews for Passover. Right. Yeah. We don't know for sure, but sure could be. So, but the ADL defends H.I.A.S, the Hebrew Immigration Aid Society, which no longer calls it Hebrew, which imports.
What do you mean it no longer calls itself Hebrew?
They kept it. H.I.A.S was a wonderful organization started in 1918 to help Jewish refugees escape pogroms.
To immigrate.
Immigrate to the West.
And
to
resettle
America,
them in the U.S.
And resettle them in the U.S. And it was great. Okay. Well, now there aren't too many customers who are Jewish for that service. Well, why kill your business model? Why not just, you keep the belt going, right? Keep the belt going and just sprinkle on different people. Well, why not any people? Why not Muslims? Well, since there's a good business model. We see Muslims being oppressed or running from war and being refugees. Why not them? Well, why not them is that according to the ADL's own statistics, Jew hatred is at its height in those very Muslim area regions.
Like Syria.
Right? So, like Syria. In fact, I did a piece on somebody studied the Syrian government school curriculum. That's the only schools they have, are government-controlled schools in Syria, in which Jews are portrayed as enemies of Islam, deceitful, treacherous, deserving of the Holocaust. So every kid who went to school
not just Israelis.
No, Jews. Yeah, every kid who went to school in Syria heard that. Maybe some of them found out it wasn't true.
Palestinian territories or Jordan. We're all educated with this.
Right. But I just wanted to focus on the Syrian thing because there's a massive lobbying effort by H.I.A.S to bring in people from Syria. So I have to tell you that You can't get into a freshman composition class on an American campus without first going to sensitivity training so that you learn that gays are wonderful people and that blacks and, that you shouldn't hate anybody, right? Here it is, this Jewish agency bringing in people who they know have been taught to hate Jews and don't even vet them, wouldn't vet them. And if I asked H.I.A.S many, many times, they won't give you a straight answer. Well, America vets them, but America only vets people not for their ideas whatsoever, but for past connections to terrorist actions. Okay,
right.
So that's not going to help us on this case. Right? It's not going to help. So you're going to import people from the region that the ADL itself says is the highest concentration of Jew haters in the world here, and you're not going to ask them a question about what they might think about their new Jewish neighbors. Or about how you treat women, or are you going to do clitorectomies when you get here, or how you treat Christians, or democracy, how you feel about democracy. So that's what ADL is doing. ADL is, and H.I.A.S, but ADL defends H.I.A.S. In fact, ADL attacks the one important Jewish organization that the ZOA, the Zionist Organization of America, which has the courage, because it's President Mort Klein, has courage, a lot of courage. And he stands up and Mort Klein says, wait, what are you doing? You're importing Jew haters into America without even give them a sensitivity class, do something, No. So when the Conference of Presidents of major Jewish organizations decided to appoint as its new director somebody who ran H.I.A.S, or who was very high up in H.I.A.S.
A chairperson.
Mort Klein said, chairperson, her name is Loeb, I think.
A board director.
Yeah. Her name is Loeb, I think. Mm-hmm. So Klein says, what are you doing? What are you doing? They attack Mort Klein for telling people that H.I.A.S is a problem. In fact, in Boston, the JCRC is considering whether or not the ZOA, Zionist Organization of America, ought to be evicted from the Jewish Community Relations Council, the umbrella group in Boston of the Jewish groups. Because of that, and because Mort Klein speaks up about the leadership of the Black Lives Matter movement, which is anti-Semitic. Not the idea is not anti-Semitic, not the people in the streets, he didn't say it's anti-Semitic, but the people, the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement are anti-Semitic, and the Black Lives Matter movement was found leading pogroms in Los Angeles and Jewish neighborhoods. Yes. Klein's the only one with, we call it cojones, I think, in Yiddish, right? Isn't that the one?
No, that's Italian, but I think we say him more.
Yeah, yes. So they hate him because he's calling them out for failing us. Yeah. So so the main theme of this talk, I think, is we need new Jewish leaders, and it's very, very hard because they have the platforms and they have the money and they have the donors. Somebody ought to go pick at their donors.
Can existing management carry it out?
I don't think the people who are running the main organizations, with one exception, I think David Harris of the American Jewish Committee could conceively turn things around. I don't know if he would do it, but he's smart enough to do it. I think he knows everything we've said, maybe not all the details, but I think he knows enough. But I don't know if he can or would do it because, after all, what are these Jewish defense agencies? Let's take the American Jewish Committee. The local committees, they have branches around the country. So who are the people who go there? They're, nice people who want to do good things, don't want to particularly have fights. I don't know that. Well, I guess my main point is that the only one who is in the Jewish establishment who has the intellectual wherewithal to turn this around, I don't know if the courage or the desire would be David Harris. Otherwise, the rest of them are lost. They have no idea. They don't know about Islam. They don't know about leftist anti-Semitism, and they certainly don't want to fight Louis Farrakhan. It's easy to fight Nazis. By the way, if there were a Nazi on a street corner, he could get punched in the face by some angry Jew, right? No one's going to punch Louis Farrakhan in the face. That's tougher. Black anti-Semitism is a really dangerous thing. And the ADL, you know what happened in Brooklyn and Borough Park when black thugs were beating up Jews. The ADL, they said a few things, but nope.
Muncie, Jersey City,
They're not
Hanukkah
going
2019.
They're not going to go after Farrakhan. They don't have the guts to go after Farrakhan. And he can be gone after. The stuff they believe is nuts. I mean, most black people, if they knew what Farrakhan believes about who whites are and who Elijah Muhammad was and all that, I mean, it's crazy.
No, but also
Farrakhan denied that Arabs have black slaves because he can't stand reports that Muslims are enslaving blacks, because his whole pitch is that Islam is the path to freedom. Well, if you've got 5 African countries where Muslims are enslaving blacks, Islam is not the path to freedom. They can get him. They don't want to get him. They're afraid of him.
how much?
So I don't think that green black, nothing would change him. He's got to go. He's just got to go. And the way to get rid of him is the interesting question.